Just my fingers all bang, bang on it. You can have it. You can put 100 grand on it. Anything I said, I stand on it. In a private plane, I land on it. And they wouldn't be calling me back on it. Cause I walk around with a blank on me. Shut it down, now style with a gun on it. Just my fingers all bang, bang on it. You can bank on it. You can put 100 grand on it. Anything I said, I stand on it. In a private plane, I land.
Thank you guys for rejoining me, Tshidi. I see you there, girl. Welcome back.
Yay, we're back.
We're back. We're back. I always have to remain conscious of that 1 hour because in the beginning, it would just like literally there'd be a timer that says like counts down from 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Before you know it, the 30 seconds becomes like, it goes at a rapid rate and then it just disconnects me. So I always make sure that I mention just before we go off.
Yeah, okay. No, I understand.
Cool. Yeah. So I think I'm trying to remember where you were at because we were talking about just, yes, representing because you're the voice for the individual that you're passing on to the line manager. And when you know the story behind it, you're at least able to get out of the way so that the manager can actually focus on what matters. Yeah, that's where we were at.
Yeah. So, and it's very important even for recruiters to do that because I think a lot of people don't know how to be honest about, listen, my line manager was toxic. Like they were just a horrible human being and they made my life hell. I've gone through this, I've gone through that. And it's then very important for recruiters to just take that moment and say, cool, to the new line manager to say, this is why this person really left that previous employer. And it's then very important to help them, come into the company knowing that you're there to support and protect them. And that's what your job is. And it's the same with salaries. The recruiter's job is to sometimes go fight for that salary. In some companies, fighting is pointless. In some companies, it's you win. It depends on how well you fight.
Salary conversations, those are key. Those are the ones that we are all like, whoo! How do we navigate our way through these ones? So, you go to interviews, and I guess it depends at what level of seniority you're at, or I guess your career progression.
Yeah.
Negotiate for that salary that you want. What is the right thing to say when you're in an interview and you're being asked about salary expectations, if there's such a thing?
So there's different ways of answering it. Like, for example, when it comes to somebody asking you about what are your salary expectations, there's one way in which you can give them a number, and normally you give them a number based on the research that you've done. The mistake that a lot of people come up with is to say, like somebody says to you, how much do you want to get? And then you say, oh yeah, I want to earn 100,000 a month, right? That's the number that you give them. And then they say to you, gee, that's a lot of money. You earning, let's say maybe 10,000 rands a month. Why do you want to jump from 10,000 to 50 or to 100,000? And then you can't give substantial information as to why that is the case. We always say information is available. You can search for it on Google. Google collects, remember like I said earlier, they collect information that you don't even think you needed that information to be collected. So go online and research to say, for this role that I'm looking at, what are the other companies paying? And you can even search to say banking, what are they paying? This one, what are they paying? Because a lot of industries pay very differently for the same titled roles. And that's where the problem comes in. A lot of people say they'll look at an engineering company's title and they'll look at a banking company title. And the two of them, the titles are exactly the same, but they do completely different things. So do a bit of research to understand what your role actually pays before you suggest the number. If you haven't yet done the research, I always say people should parrot this to say, please provide me with all the other benefits or what is available from your company point of view so that I can go see compared to what I'm currently earning and see what it is worth. So, and the reason why I always say that is because if I come from banking, we always say 10 to 15% of my salary should always be included in from a benefits point of view, right? So you'll find that banking, because I can buy a car, a house, like as long as you're using the benefits, by the way. If you're not using the benefits, then it's not worth it. But if you have your car, your account, your, all the other benefits from a banking point of view, and you move to another company, I always say to people, be cognizant of the fact that in that new company, if they don't have some of the most equivalent benefits, you need to calculate how much you're benefiting from your bank right now, add it to your current package, and ask for an increase after it's been added. So if, for example, let's say you're working for a bank, and from a bank, your benefit amounts to about 100,000 a year, but your salary is 600,000. You take 100,000, you add it to 600,000, and you say to them, after 700,000, I want a 10% increase. It is then easier to say, this is the reason why I want that 10% increase above the 700,000. Whether it ends up making it 25%, it's easier even for the recruiter to go explain it to the line manager to say, this person's banking benefits amount to this much. Unless we can match the benefits, we need to pay up, because that means I'm going to lose all those benefits. That means I'm going to pay more on my mortgage. I'm going to pay more on my car. I'm going to pay more on this. So cover for that loss of benefits. And then from there, your increase should come above the benefits, not starting to talk about an increase from, I'm earning 600,000, I want 15%. If your benefits are already 12% more than the current package, that means you're actually getting a 3% increase. So just look at those benefits. And another thing, leave days, for example. You come from a company that gives you 28 days leave. You move to a company that gives you 21 days leave. Calculate in a year how much that is worth, and ensure that at least they compensate for those extra 8 days or 7 days. And then those 7 days, if you're asking for an increase, you're asking an increase with the 7 days already added to your current package. And then you say, above and beyond, this is the increase I want.
Sure. It sounds like quite a science. Sounds like I have to have a model running in the background calculating all of this for me.
It's a true science. But unfortunately, a lot of candidates don't know this. And we don't obviously always freely share it as recruiters, because it could become a nightmare for us, because now we need to go and motivate for crazier things than we've ever done. But the reality is that's what we need to start doing, and we need to start sharing this information. And hopefully there's somebody out there that can build a model that will help people calculate their benefits, so that they can use that to ask for an increase based on the benefits being added.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you for that. And while we are still on that part about remuneration, so we earlier spoke about people job hopping for the sole purpose, or largely because they want to ramp up their income, they want to like double it or whatever the case may be. So some people even go to the extent of saying, you know what, I'm going to leave this current corporate that I'm in. I'm happy with everything other than the salary that I'm getting. So I'm going to leave just to increase my income and potentially come back. Is there a way, how do we, I guess, equip employers as well to say, instead of having your people go because they're going to try and increase their income outside, and this may be top talent in the organization, rather retain them? Like, I think my question really is twofold. It's about, from an employer's perspective, how can they ensure that they retain their talent in that way, where the talent doesn't say, look, I'm going to venture out just for the reason of increasing my income and I'll come back because fundamentally I'm not unhappy in this place other than the money. And then number two, also, as the person who is in the corporate, so the employee, you don't really want to leave. How do you have that conversation with your employer to say, guys, you need to look at my numbers. I don't feel like my numbers are making sense. I don't want to go, but my numbers are not making sense.
Yeah. I think it boils down to just a bit of the research up front to say, what are your numbers looking like if you were to go somewhere else? And that's why I sometimes say, date 1 or 2 recruiters. And dating 1 or 2 recruiters means have an exploratory discussion with a recruiter also, just to get a bit more information about this and say to them, okay, I just want to understand this, because this is how the company views me and this is what they think about me. And then most recruiters will give you some of the data to say, yeah, in the market, your role should be earning this much based on 1, 2, 3. You then take that information and have an honest conversation with your line manager. The biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they tend to say, yes, I should be earning a bit more. But what they then unfortunately do is they don't tell the line manager what their expectations are. And yet this is a person that has got your livelihood here. And you don't tell them to say, this is what I think I need. So gather that information and be honest enough also when you have the conversation with them to say, listen, I've been approached, especially if you've been approached by somebody else, to say, I've been approached by this and that. I love the culture. I love the company. I love the people I work with. I love the following. These are some of the things that I'm actually, loving about this environment. What I'm struggling with is financially, I'm not surviving. Financially, this is where I'm struggling. That honest conversation, I always say, especially if you love the company and the people that you work with, it is the most freeing conversation you'll ever have, because what happens is, even when you decide to resign and leave, nobody can say you didn't tell us that you were not happy with something. You've put the ball back into our court to say, listen, this is where I'm at the moment. Financially, this is what I need. And also, even when you leave and you get to another place and you become miserable there, it is very important. Also, it's nice because even when you call back your manager and say, listen, I want to come back, but I'll only come back if you pay me what I'm currently earning where I am right now, because I can't come back to the old salary because of the nice thing is, even when you demand something like that, you told them before you left. You told them before you went for the interviews. Don't present a letter with a hope for a counter offer. That just never works, because that's what some people do, is they'll present an offer to say, oh, company X has given me this much. What do you say? And then the manager's like, okay, cool, goodbye. And you're like, because you haven't had the conversation where the line manager could honestly tell you to say, listen, our department is struggling financially. This is where the issues are. This is where the problem comes in. If we can turn this around, we can turn that around. This is where we will actually be able to be financially, and we'll be able to motivate for this money, all those things. If you don't become honest with the line manager, I promise you, you're going to find yourself in a situation where, yes, you leave, but then you're just going to have, they call it not the buy, yeah, it's almost like a buyer's remorse, where you regret your decisions. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I think honesty is always key, but I also think they're not honest. I mean, not honest, not easy conversations to have, because also you start to think, oh, what if I become victimized, for lack of a better word, lack of a better way to put it, do I need to be shooting the lights out for me to be justified in terms of saying, listen, this is where I'm at financially, and these are the struggles that I have, and I've done my research, I've spoken to whatever recruiter, so I think this is what I guess my worth is. It's not always easy to have those conversations. It's almost easier maybe if you're a top performer, but if you're just somebody who is there and still delivering on your the expectations that the business has of you, I think it makes it a lot easier, because I think you've got a lot more bargaining power. Yes, no?
Yeah, I agree. I think, but remember also, the other thing is, we all know our line managers. Like, we all know who we report to. Like, we'll know how, if they'll take it personal, we'll know. Like, this one is gonna start thinking, am I taking them? And then that's when you actually ask other people outside of that person. You can go speak to HR, but also pick the right HR person, because some HR people are snitches. Some will go snitch on you and get you into trouble. Some will actually listen to you and give you the right advice, and they'll even hint to the line manager and say to them, hey, listen, this is happening. If we don't fix this person's salary, they might leave. All right. But you need to sometimes also be very aware of your environment, where you are, the people you work with. If you are aware, I promise you, it's easier then to say, how do you start the conversation with your line manager? Do you start it at a coffee chat, or do you start it in a meeting room? Do you schedule a meeting? Because some line managers will appreciate it at a coffee chat, to say, where you're like, hey, listen, before I forget, I wanted to chat to you about my salary. It's not looking good. I'm currently struggling, and I know a recruiter reached out to me. That's at a coffee chat, so it's a bit more relaxed. It doesn't sound like you're attacking them. Some line managers want a meeting, and then you have to sit down and say, well, the reason I'm calling you today is because. But also, you need to be able to say, if they don't give you what you want, what are you willing to do? And it's the same as if you get the wrong offer, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to walk away? Because if you don't walk away, then they call your bluff. Because some people they'll call your bluff and say, okay, cool, let's see what you're gonna do. And then you didn't have anybody else lined up, or you haven't had a conversation with anybody, and then you now struggle, and then they start victimizing you because you didn't read the situation. Read your environment, read your line manager, read the people you can trust, and then use that going forward.
Okay, that's a fair one. So, all right. I saw it was saying on your LinkedIn, it was saying you are on a sabbatical.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
So,
I'm
what does a
parenting full
sabbatical
time.
look like? Hey, you're parenting full time.
Yeah, I'm parenting full time. I think so what is it? Beginning of this year, I think if you asked me 9 months ago where I'll be now, I'll probably tell you I'll still be working and doing what I'm doing. But beginning of this year, I think a lot of things started happening, and we wanted to give my boy. So we had an option to say we've got my parents, who are in Botswana, and we've also got his grandparents that are here in Switzerland. And we needed to pick a place that we can actually, because we wanted to have a better relationship with one of the grandparents at least. And the decision was then made to say, hey, in Bots, yeah, no, it's home, but jobs there are going to be very difficult, especially even for her. It's going to be very difficult for her to get opportunities. So we then settled in moving here to Switzerland. So in my head, I had always planned to say, obviously, the first 6 months is trying to come and learn the language, because there's a lot of issues when you move overseas. One of those things is, especially for Switzerland, is the language part. I mean, they've got 4 different languages. You need to speak at least one of them, and it was one of those things where I had already prepared myself to say the first couple of months I'll start learning the language so that I can be prepared for whatever comes our way, and then I'll also start looking for jobs on the side. So I am looking for jobs at the moment, going through interviews, but it's more because of that and because of how expensive pre-kindergarten is. Like once he turns 4, Bob's your uncle, we're good, education is free. But before then, which is in the next 2 years, you pay for everything. So we then decided, cool, I'll parent full time. I'll look after him while I look for jobs. When the wife comes home, because she's already working, she'll help me look after him. I'll go online, keep on applying for jobs. So that's what I've literally been doing for the last 2 months now. And also this is the first break in 18 years that I've had. Like
Whoa.
This is the first time I've literally not done any work-related thing. This is the longest time I've ever not been accountable to somebody in a very long time. So 18 years of that, I think it came at the right time. And now, because I know after this, it's another 18 years of suffering again. So I might as well just enjoy.
How does it feel being on the other side now? From you being a recruiter, top talent acquisition acquirer. How does it feel being on the other side?
I think it's the weirdest thing about interviews is when you've done more than 1,000 interviews at any given time and asked 1,000 questions, you sort of already know what to expect when you go for an interview. Like you sort of what, and when you in a hostile interview or when you're not in a hostile interview, so you can read the environment a lot of the times. I think the fun thing that I've now picked up is being able to enjoy being interviewed for a change, and actually seeing where I would have asked the question differently. Like it's a strange thing. It's like one of those things where you're a mechanic and somebody finally starts fixing your car, and you're like, yeah, no, you're doing it the right way, but I would have asked this question this way. So that's me. Like I think I look at it sometimes where I'm like, I love all the questions, and when some of the questions are coming, and I'm like, the way it's been asked is either to try and trip me up. Like I already can pick it up. Like you can pick up that this is what's happening, and then you give them the 2 answers because they're trained to trip you up. And so it's been a very interesting experience, to be honest. I think things are very different here. They do things very differently compared to South Africa. I think in Switzerland it's a lot more how many connections you've got first, like how many people do you know that needs to speak about you first before people start listening to you. That's the difficult part.
Sure. So you literally, this is you starting from the ground up because you're still trying to build those connections, those networks. Now, while we're still on the topic about taking a sabbatical, people take
Yeah.
sabbaticals for different reasons, right? So sometimes it's because you need to go and study full time, because you're trying to maybe make a career shift or change. Other times you're going through some personal circumstances where you just feel like you can't juggle or manage these two.
Yeah.
How do you, I don't know, that the number of people I've spoken to who've gone through personal things where even the loss of a family member was so much on you that you felt like, you know what, I need to take some time out. Coming back into the world, into the job market, how honest can one be about some of those things, and how is it received? Is it taken as, oh, well, you took a sabbatical? Because obviously in your instance, it makes sense why you decided to make the move, wanted to give your son better opportunities and being closer to grandparents as well. But for somebody else who doesn't have as, I guess, I don't know, as understandable a story as you, who says, listen, I was going through something and that's why I needed to take time out.
Yeah.
Can you be that honest and you're given a fair opportunity to be hired?
You can, but also I think at the same time, I think, so the sabbatical conversation is like I've had people that I've interviewed that have gone to Twasa, for example. You know, they had to go away because, you know, Badimu called them to say, yo, come, be one of us. And a lot of people were able to easily say that. I think where people struggle is being honest about what they've done, and then they become cagey, and then we start thinking you were fired. You know, so I think the honesty part is being able to say, listen, 2 years ago, this is basically what happened, or last year, this is basically what happened. I went through the worst, you know, time in my life. This is basically, you don't have to go into the detail of what you've gone through, but a human being with half a brain is, especially in the recruitment space, will be able to pick up that, you know, it was a break that you needed for your own sanity. Because I think I speak a lot about mental health, and I think it's one of those things that I think is extremely important, especially in the times that we're in. So it's okay to be that honest. It's just the problem is people tend to say, I had personal issues, and then they leave it there. And then I'm like, how? Personal issues, they fired you. That's a personal issue. You know, so I always say it is rather very important to at least explain it. You don't have to get into the exact detail. Explain it in such a way that even if a judge was to listen, they'll say, okay, cool, I understand why you explained it that way. But do not become cagey about the sabbatical that you took. Because, I mean, we tend to become lie detectors as recruiters. We're able to pick up when you're coming up with a story on the fly. And we're like, Witimala is now lying now. You know, and we'll push you, and you still keep lying, and then you don't get the job. And you're like, but I was the right person. Yes, you were. But you were cagey about this sabbatical or the time that you took, that you actually had a mental breakdown. It's okay to, and I think we need to start, I hate using this word, normalizing, being able to tell
I could hear that one coming. The normalizing, I could hear it coming. There's no better word than normalizing.
Like, it's horrible. Like, it's a bad word. Like, it's just a social media word. But I think we need to start normalizing speaking about mental health even in interviews. The reason why it's taboo is because nobody speaks about it. Nobody is saying, I had a mental breakdown last year because this is what I was dealing with. You know, and you're too cagey. And I'm like, I don't even know what the hell to expect from you now. You're not telling me what's wrong or why you left your previous employer or why you ghosted companies for 6 months. It's okay to say, I took a sabbatical because I had a mental breakdown, and this is that, and this is where I had to start working and building myself. Because a lot of people we work with have had mental breakdowns. They disappeared for 3 months because the doctor booked them off for 3 months. You know, they come back and we embrace them. But if you can't explain in an interview without being cagey, you won't get that job. Yeah.
So it's important to show up authentically, pretty much.
Yeah, just be authentic. And I think, yes, it might not necessarily, a lot of us go through different things. There are certain things where it's so hectic that you'll break down even in the interview. But the reality is just give the people enough information to understand that there was something that would have made you leave. Not that you left because you're lazy and you just wanted to go chill for 6 months. You know, it's and that's where a lot of people come where they're like, listen, I lost my mother and yeah, and then I just went home. And you're like, cool. And you're the breadwinner. Yes. Okay. So you're the breadwinner that leaves a job after you lose your mother and you have to look after your sisters and your brothers and this and that. Like the story doesn't add up. So you sometimes need to be able to say, listen, I'm the breadwinner. I've been carrying the family. This is what's been happening throughout all my life. And when I lost this person at this time, I basically had a mental breakdown because I could not cope with anything else, including work and worrying about deliverables and this and that. And the time to go be with myself was to protect who I am and the person that I am so that I can come show off very differently. I mean, if you're a recruiter and you listen to me say that, you're like, oh, okay, all right, cool, come on board. I understand why you left and it makes sense. But if you come to me and you're like, yeah, no, I lost my mother and then I went home. Okay. Like, why did you go home? Like, no, I just had to go home. I just had to go home. My mother is gone, so I had to go home. You're not giving me a story as to why certain things. Yes, you went through, and it's tough to lose a family member.
Mm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Like I was just listening to the two different responses that you're giving, and I would definitely, as a recruiter, if I heard the first one that you just went home because you lost a family member, okay, and then what?
Yeah.
But you know, the second way that you put it, it puts it into perspective to say, I was carrying too much. It was too hard for me to cope, and this is what happened. I mean, you can't even question that. So
yeah, like it's like, oh, cool. Oh, gee, man, sorry about that. And it's those times where, as a recruiter, I'll go to the line manager and say, listen, last year this person went away for 6 months, and this is the reason. And because now I'm getting them to understand the sensitivity of what you had to go through, so that I protect your conversation. And when they come meet you, they're meeting you about, cool, what skills do you have? What do you have? Da, 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 da. Cool. And then you're sorted. You get hired for that. But if you're a KG, I don't even know what to tell the line manager going forward. I don't even know how to defend you. Like, even when we debrief, I'm like, hey, the story that she told me there, I don't understand that story. So it's very important that you're authentic and you tell people what's happened, because we're all humans and we all go through these things. If you're authentic, we'll pick up that you're authentic. If you're being cagey because you think something that you did was too embarrassing, then we're not going to win.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tshidi, I'm loving this conversation with you. I know that we can go on and on and on, especially because it's a topic that I think a lot of us are interested in, because we all find ourselves in spaces at some point in our lives where we have to, you know, speak to potential employers and all of that. So I think, you know, we can go on and on. But I know Top of the Morning with Tshidi, your YouTube channel, there's a lot of content that you share there, and big ups to you for actually taking that move and saying, I'm going to do this because I identify that there's a gap. I think it's quite empowering. Very excited about that. Also very excited to see, you know, you being on a different continent now, how you kind of shift some of the things that you know and sharing that with us to say, guys, this is what I'm finding in the first world. This is what the shift has been, and sharing all of that. So I'm going to I'll put something up on my stories just so that people know where to go. For your channel on YouTube. And then you're obviously also on LinkedIn. Like you said, you've got a very big following, always sharing stuff. I'm always reading all your stuff. I'm always interested. I'm like, it's one of those things. And I love the name that you've selected, like Top of the Morning with Tshidi, because it's like you're having your coffee and you have this thing to reflect on. Yeah. Love it. Love it. So I think before I let you go, I just wanted to know, like, what do you live by? Your life philosophy or mantra, if you want to call it that. What do you live by?
Always be authentic. Because I think my vulnerabilities, I wear my heart on my sleeves. And I think I'm one of those people that if I don't know something, I'll tell you. Because I think if you're going to judge me based on that, then, you know, that's how the cookie crumbles. But I always think, to be honest, be authentic as much as you can. Where you struggle, and because in recruitment, I know for a fact that I don't know enough. I don't know everything. And that's why also in my YouTube channel, I try to bring in some of the people that have been doing this for even longer to say, come, let's discuss these things. Because The moment you start thinking that you know everything, that's when you don't know anything. So I just try and make sure that I bring in as many people as possible, because also it reshapes some of my views when they start explaining the way they see things and they start explaining certain things. So I always say, just be authentic, be honest with all the things that you can. When you don't know something, it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter whether you're in church or you're in an interview. If you don't know, you don't know. Stop lying. You know, and that's that's exactly what I try to do as much as I can. And I'll tell people in advance to say, listen, I don't know this, but I can find it. I can find it for you. And that's how I live by. Because also, I think having a son is now trying to really instill that in me so much, to a point where even when he grows older, I want him to learn that, to just always be authentic, to always never lie, so that at least we're able to deal with the problems as they come, instead of finding out the problem happened and it's too late by then. So just, it's the only way I can try and bring him up. Just be honest.
I love that. Such an underrated thing, that authenticity. So I absolutely love that. It's such a good philosophy or core value to live by, because I think a lot of people show up at the table thinking, oh, I need to try and be who I'm not. I need to try and be somebody else. And really, when you're authentic, that is when you shine, because you were given different gifts and talents that nobody else has. So if you show up as yourself, right here.
So,
thank you.
So now I'm going to ask you something.
Go for it. It's fine. I love these curveballs. You guys like to throw them at me. Go for it.
Yeah. So I want to also, so part of what I do, obviously, on my LinkedIn and YouTube, is to try and educate. I mean, you're a banker. You understand quite a lot about banking. You understand quite a lot of things. I do think that maybe you and I need to now have a conversation where you can educate people about understanding why you even need a banker in the first place. Because a lot of people think that people just pay you money and then you just take the money and put it in the company and then that's it. Like, just some of the basic things that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to, especially now during COVID, and how well they can, you know, reach out to people like you, and why it's important for them to speak to a banker, just so that they understand the basics. I do think that maybe it's time I schedule a session with you now to interview about banking with the banker. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you put me on the spot. I am a banker. I'd be more than happy to do that. We would chat about it, obviously, offline, just to kind of see what I need to prepare for, to make sure that as a banker, obviously, I'm not allowed to be giving advice on anything. But if we're going to have like a there's no harm in empowering people with information that obviously helps them make more informed decisions. So I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
You have to make sure that it happens in the live so that I don't chicken out in private.
Yeah, no, I had to make sure. I didn't want to send you a message and say, listen, I think I need to interview. I was like, nah, let me wait while she's live, because she's going to load it on her channel. And then I can always go back to this and say, remember on minute number this and that, you said the following, and you agree. So.
And there are all these people that are actually connected now that are witnesses. So if I dare try to chicken out, they can be like, girl, please, you committed to this thing.
Yeah,
so
you committed to
certainly.
Not
certainly. We'll, cool. And thank you for that. Thank you for your time. This is a Sunday. As you did mention, in Switzerland, it's important that family time. You've taken almost, what is it, an hour and a half, actually. Yeah, just over an hour and a half that we had this conversation. I really appreciate it. I don't take it for granted, because time is money. Time is also family time. So thank you. Tell the beloved wife and the son that we are very thankful for you sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much. At least it's still 3:30, so I still have a bit of time. The sun is still out, so we'll just take another walk, because he needs to get tired. So we need to take another walk around the neighborhood. But thanks a lot for having me, and thanks. Like, I've been wondering, like, when is this girl gonna call me? Because I also want to be part of her channel. You know, I'm glad you did it.
It's been there. I'll tell you, whenever I identify people that I want to speak to, you'll sometimes, like, the seed is there, it's planted in my heart, and then I'll only approach you like 12 weeks later, because like I schedule these conversations. Like I said to you the other day, I'm so happy that we got to have this chat before year end, because I think I have post this, I have 2 more left, and then I'm just going to take some downtime because the break is definitely needed. But I'm so glad that we managed to have it, and I think a lot of our audience has gotten value from this just based on how they were engaging. So some people did join in late. Thank you guys for joining. I'll save this on my IGTV and again on YouTube. And I'll also put up on my stories where you can find Tshidi on YouTube. He's got amazing content that he's sharing. So, fantastic.
Thank you very much. And
Cool.
I'll see you next time.
All right. Cool stuff. Cheers, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.